Democratic presidential frontrunner Hillary Clinton unveiling a plan to keep Wall Street in check. Here to walk us through the proposals is Harry Stein, the Director of Fiscal Policy at the Center for American Progress, joining us from Washington. And Harry, Clinton is calling for the expansion of the Dodd-Frank bill, which of course is the holy grail of financial regulation, so to speak. Explain.
So I think what we're hearing here is a real commitment to building on the law, and that's a real central debate in this election because we've seen from Republicans in Congress and also from Republican presidential candidates a real push to try to weaken or even repeal the law outright. And so what we've heard from Hillary Clinton is a push to strengthen the Volcker Rule that makes sure that banks aren't gambling with insured deposits, and a push to make sure that we're holding individual executives accountable rather than just levying fines on corporations themselves, to make sure that there's appropriate mechanisms in place to discourage wrongdoing.
All right, and she would also essentially charge a, quote, risk fee on some of the biggest financial firms, right?
Right. So we've seen variations of this proposal now for several years, a tax on either large banks or on banks with particularly risky activities and non-bank financial institutions as well. We haven't seen all the details on that, but it sounds like Hillary Clinton is going to go in that direction, and also using the tax code to levy a tax on particularly risky financial transactions, high-frequency trading. Another proposal where that's been something that's been discussed for several years, some sort of financial transactions tax.
And also, regulators would have more wherewithal to split up some of the bigger firms out there, of course, presumably in an effort to end too big to fail, which many experts say is still an issue even 8 years after the financial crisis.
So it is still an issue. I think unquestionably Dodd-Frank made progress here. Banks and large non-banks have to submit orderly liquidation plans, basically plans to make sure that if something goes wrong, they are able to wind down in a way that doesn't take down the financial system. And that's been a challenge for a lot of them. And we've seen regulators push banks back to the drawing board. So I think it's important to note the progress that's already been made, but certainly more does need to be done. And Hillary Clinton's plan seems to be doing that by empowering regulators more to actually break up banks or direct them to do things to make their operations safer if it looks like there's just no way for them to exist safely in their current capacity.
And she's not calling for a reinstatement of GlassSteagall, which once separated a bank's investment and commercial banking areas. She says that won't scale back shadow banking.
Well, she's right about that. GlassSteagall doesn't place limits on size. It separates, as you say, commercial banking from investment banking. I think it's important to note that a lot of the biggest causes of the financial crisis were not commercial banks. GlassSteagall wouldn't have applied to them anyway. I also think that I don't want to say that this is a non-issue, but it's sort of a side issue to the real issue of what's going to happen to Dodd-Frank. Is it going to be implemented in a rigorous way, or is it going to be scaled back and repealed? That's really the question that the next president gets a chance to answer.
All right, Harry Stein with us from the Center for American Progress. Harry, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Scott Gamm, and you're watching The Street.